Well, here we are. I want to welcome you. Somebody suggested that I call this the 2020 Power Prospecting Bundle, and that's pretty much what it is. So I'm Vicki Rackner. I leverage my experience as a practicing surgeon, clinical faculty at the University of Washington School of Medicine, and serial entrepreneur to help people accelerate their business growth by acquiring more doctor clients. And what we are talking about here in December is specifically how you build digital sales funnels to acquire more doctor clients. So a sales funnel means it's a series of interactions that you have with doctors. Digital means that this can all happen over the computer. It can all be automated. It's something that doctors appreciate. It's something that makes your life easier, and it increases the return on your investment, whether it's your time, your energy, or your marketing dollars. So we're talking specifically about how to take this digital book, The 9 Money Mistakes That Doctors Make, and create a digital funnel that will help doctors who may not even know that you exist get interested in you and then convert and become your clients. Okay, well, you might be asking, well, what if I don't have any doctor clients right now? Well, we've got you covered. So whether you're new to the medical market, or maybe you just have a few doctor clients, or maybe you even only work with doctor clients, but you want an idea to take you to that next level of success, you're in the right place. That's what we're all about today. Okay, so specifically, you're going to take away a brief review of the elements of the digital sales funnel, because this is really important. Then we're going to talk about the success mindset, because we're going to start to talk about how to go out and actually start engaging more doctors, because today you're going to take away 5 specific campaigns that you can get to start to build your doctor funnel. All right, well, first let's talk about those 8 elements of a digital sales funnel. So again, these sales funnels are intended to give you those 6 to 10 touch points that you will need on average to convert somebody from a prospect to a client. All right, the first thing that you need is a yummy treat. Remember, the first yes from a doctor is the hardest to get. So that first yes, you want to offer something really, really yummy that they actually want. The great news for you is that doctors really are interested in the 9 money mistakes that doctors make. This is sort of proven. And so that is going to be the entrance to your digital sales funnel. Now, if you've got other yummy treats that you know work, you can set up different digital sales funnels and see how they perform. And when you find the one that performs the best, that's the one you want to focus on. Okay, number 2, we need to get this message in front of people. You need leads. And we talked about 3 buckets of leads last time. The first bucket are family, friends, and fans, people who already know, like, and trust you. The second are power partners. You probably call them centers of influence. So these are people who have lists of doctors, and doctors have good relationships with them. So if the power partner sends an email, the doctor is going to open the email. And the third bucket of leads are the doctor information seekers. So they're actually and actively out looking for answers to specific questions and problems. Okay, the third element that you need is a landing page. And a landing page is nothing more than a 1-page website where a doctor is able to trade their name and email address for your yummy treat. So you can set up 1-page landing pages, but also know that you can put a sign-up box on your website. And I would recommend putting this sign-up box above the fold, as they used to say in the newspaper industry. So in other words, when your website loads on your doctor's computer or on their smartphone, this is one of the first things that they see. I personally believe that your website has a job, and that job should be to collect doctors' names and email addresses and engage them in taking the next step with you. So because we're talking about digital sales funnels, you're going to want to email a copy of the digital book. So it's important to have this set up. All right, the fourth element is a list management system. So once the doctor gives you the name and the email address, it has to go on a list. And the list vendor that I recommend getting started with, if you're just starting with digital sales funnels, is MailChimp. It is very cost effective, it's easy to use, and it integrates with most vendors that make landing pages. Next, what you need is drip content, right? So once a doctor is in your funnel and you have permission to get in touch with them, and by the way, this brings up a pet peeve. A lot of advisors will just put me on their list because they got an email from me. That is not cool. That is spamming, and so you could get in trouble, but it's just not the kind of relationship that you want. So you always want to get a doctor's permission before you put them on the list or send them drip content. All right, the great news here is that this book is the source of all sorts of drip contact. You know, if you wanted 10 contacts, you got the book as your first contact, and then you got 9 money mistakes. So you can make some content around each of the 9 money mistakes. And you might want to think about different ways that you can package information. So maybe you make a 2-minute video about it. Maybe you do a 6-minute Facebook live stream, and we're going to talk about how to do that. Maybe you do a podcast. Maybe you just do a blog post. So different doctors like learning in different ways. You want to mix it up, and in general, do the thing that's easiest for you and also is most fun for doctors to receive. All right, since we're talking about digital sales funnels, how about having digital online scheduling? So the idea with the digital sales funnel is that doctors see that you really have a commitment to helping them, and you're always inviting them to set up an appointment with you. It's highly unlikely that a doctor is going to become your client without actually sitting knee to knee with you. So if every drip communication that you send to them has a button that says, click here to schedule an appointment, it's going to make it much easier and much more convenient and more likely that a doctor is going to set up an appointment with you. Next, you want to test and tweak. So sometimes little changes can make a huge difference. I just recently invested in a course about how to do Facebook ads, and the instructor kind of surprised me when he said, you know, when I make an ad, I always make 10 of them because I know that 9 of them are not going to work. So you always want to be thinking about how you can get better results from your digital sales funnel. And then last, part of the secret element in your digital sales funnel is recruiting a physician evangelist. So the most influential person in a doctor's life is another doctor. You know that it's very difficult to get past the gatekeeper. When you've got a doctor, in essence, on your marketing team, it makes it a lot easier. They can introduce you to other people. And let me just remind you that you sort of already got a physician evangelist because you're distributing a book that's been written by a physician. All right, let's go on to the mindset of success. Now, I know from your perspective, what you're looking to do is to achieve your business goals by acquiring more doctor clients. But you've got to have the right mindset to really make this work. So I understand that you've made a smart business choice by exploring the doctor market because doctors follow Sutton's law. When Willie Sutton was asked, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. Well, according to the US Department of Labor statistics, 9 out of the 10 top earners in the US call themselves doctors. There are about 800,000 practicing physicians, about 200,000 practicing dentists in the US, and it's unlikely that medicine is going to be outsourced anytime in the near future. I mean, people do go on medical tourism, but this is a growth industry. About 40% of physicians are age 50 or older, so this is a demographic that actually has wealth. I'm here to tell you that doctors have a lot of pain, specifically financial pain. Half of doctors say that they're behind in retirement planning. They're hoping that they don't have to work until they're 70, but they don't really see any other way to do it. So they're dealing with all sorts of concerns like falling reimbursements and rising expenses and costly regulatory changes. A lot of doctors these days are saying, it's just not fun anymore. In fact, we're facing an epidemic of physician burnout. So according to a recent survey, about 40% of physicians said that they have experienced burnout this past year. They've experienced toxic stress. They don't want to go to work anymore. They don't find joy in dealing with their patients. Maybe they're afraid that their patients are going to sue them. So one of the most common things that doctors are asking these days is, how do I get out? How do I move up retirement by 5 to 10 years? Now, we're going to talk about Facebook because doctors are on Facebook. One of the biggest doctors group on Facebook is about side gigs. How can they leave the clinical practice of medicine and find other ways of generating revenue? And check out these numbers. There's 50,000 people in this private group. Doctors are in pain. Further, they lack the tools to translate their high incomes into wealth. Well, I'd love to have time to go into the whole conversation about physicians and their relationship with money. This is something I do in the Cracking the Physician Code course, but this is a really targeted training for you. So I'm just going to invite you to read The Myth of the Rich Doctor. This is written for doctors. I basically talk about money kind of like one of the doctor's patients. So I go through a history and physical, some diagnostic tests, but this will give you some insights about doctors and their relationship with money. And you can download this free of charge from the Targeting Doctors site. Okay, but how about if we go through these 9 money mistakes, since this is the book that you're going to be distributing, and I do highly recommend that you read it, but let me tell you some highlights. Okay, so Warren Buffett's 2 rules of investing. Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. So in my interview with hundreds and hundreds of physicians, I've heard their money stories. I've seen certain patterns. And that's kind of the basis upon which I wrote The Myth of the Rich Doctor. But what occurred to me is that part of the thing that helps doctors build wealth, that separates the wealthy doctors from the struggling doctors, is a doctor's ability to avoid financial mistakes. So this book talks about 3 classes of mistakes, and there are 3 mistakes in each class. And by the way, when you're creating marketing material, the brain resonates with 3. So you always want to be thinking in terms of, okay, well, here are 3 reasons. Okay, so the first class of problems that doctors experience is the failure to execute habits of wealth. Now, one of the huge items that you can talk about with doctors are taxes. As you know, we have a new tax code, and the intention is to help us be more competitive in a global market. So primarily, the new tax law addresses the lowering of corporate tax rates. That probably wouldn't have passed unless the workers of the corporations were also given a tax break. So there are lots of people who are helped by the new tax law. Who's not necessarily helped? Well, it's people like you, high-earning professionals, financial advisors, lawyers, physicians. Many physicians saw their taxes go up last year instead of down. And you and I both know that, well, first of all, taxes are a biggest lifetime expense for any of us. Many doctors haven't already thought about that. But if they can take control of their taxes, they can take control of their financial destiny. So I really encourage you to build a financial dream team, have a formal tax strategist on board. And I will tell you that a tax strategist who's actually one of my clients in 2018 saved an orthopedic surgeon, now get this, $948,000 in taxes, not by tax evasion, but by legal and ethical applications of the current tax law. So this is a hot topic for doctors. This is a great way to engage doctors in conversations. And as you're creating your drip content, this is a topic that you may want to amplify. Okay, second, doctors are not very good at leverage. So what is leverage? Well, if you've got an Allen screw and put it in an Allen wrench, you know, if you put the short end of the Allen screw in the wrench, you've got a longer lever arm. So you get more work done for the same amount of effort as if you put the long end of the screw into the Allen wrench into the Allen screw. So leverage is about doing more with less. And part of the leverage that we know about very well is leveraging time, the power of compound interest. Now, doctors have already lost out on this because, you know, I put in an extra decade of training after I finished my undergraduate degree. I wasn't investing during my medical training. I was borrowing money. And so, you know, this whole curve gets shifted for doctors. But there are other ways of leveraging things, leveraging other people's money. So something like premium financing. I don't know how you feel about it, but for the right doctor, it's a really, really good choice. They can leverage the work of others. So maybe doctors want to hire physician's assistants or nurse practitioners, or maybe they want to leverage their own time by engaging experts like you. Okay, third mistake is to fail to plan for the biology of behavior. So we all want to believe that we make choices based on our thinking brain. But now that we're putting people into functional MRIs, what we're discovering is that actually most of our choices are made in the feeling brain, and then we justify them with our thinking brains. Unfortunately, if we followed our biology, we would go broke. But this evolving field of behavioral finance, of neuroeconomics, I think is key. So you help doctors manage their money, but a doctor's ability to manage himself or herself, understand this biology is huge. And let me just give you one example. You've probably said that, you know, some people just seem like born spenders or born savers. And there is a biologic basis for this. There's an area of the feeling brain called the nucleus accumbens. And each of us is either wired more sensitively to the joy of spending or the pain of parting with our money. So it really does appear that this is biological. So spenders have a hard time building wealth. Savers have a hard time enjoying the things that money can buy. Okay, well, why is this important for doctors? Well, if you want to help them build wealth, part of what they're going to need to do is increase their savings. And there's always going to be this tug of war between spending and saving. But here is something fascinating. I was actually giving a talk at a medical meeting about the myth of the rich doctor. The very next speaker was a psychiatrist from Harvard who talked about burnout. He talked about how toxic stress is toxic to the brain. And the target was, guess where? The nucleus accumbens. So many doctors, I believe, are using spending as a stress management tool. I know I've done it myself. It feels good. You get a release of dopamine when you actually spend. So if you can just help doctors understand that, that's one step closer for them sort of replacing judgment about why they're in this financial pickle with an understanding. Okay, next class of mistakes is the failure of doctors to embrace sound business practices. All right, so about 30% of doctors these days are in private practice, and they do some pretty crazy things. The first is that many don't have the right corporate structure that's going to help them minimize their tax burden. So this is a message that you can bring to them. But you're going to love this one. Many doctors in private practice walk away from about 30% of their revenue. So the insurance companies will regularly reject insurance claims as a way of hanging on to their money longer. And many doctors who are focusing on patient care simply do not follow up on these insurance claims. One doctor talked about his Porsche drawer. He opened the drawer, there were a stack of rejection notes from the insurance company. He said, I know that if I would follow up on these claims, I would be able to buy a Porsche for cash, but we just can't find the time. So one intervention that can immediately help your doctor clients is to outsource their billing. And another person on your dream team is going to be an outsourced medical biller. So doctors just hand this off to them, and the outsourced medical biller has some financial skin in the game. So they get a percentage of what they collect. So very quickly, usually within 30 to 60 days, doctors see their cash flow increase. So imagine that a doctor is used to a certain standard of living and suddenly they get 20% more. Well, it's 20% that they can invest with you. All right, next is failure to negotiate. Doctors just don't like negotiating, and they pay the literal cost for it. So the average orthopedic surgeon getting out of fellowship training has a starting salary of about $500,000. Let's say this person is an employee and works for 30 years, gets a 10% raise each year. Well, we can project the lifetime savings. What though if that doctor increases the starting salary by 10%? This could potentially translate into millions of dollars over a career. So negotiating is important. So something that you might want to think about is having a lawyer who can do contract reviews as part of your dream team. Maybe you can coach your doctor clients through the process of actually negotiating for more money, and everything is negotiable. I mean, private doctors can even go to insurance companies and negotiate the fee that they get for an individual procedure. So when I did appendectomies, for example, my surgical fee would range from about $200 to $2,000 depending on the patient's insurance. Well, part of the reason that hospitals can afford to pay doctors more than a doctor might make if they were in private practice is that the hospital is a larger negotiating body, so they can negotiate better fees and pass along some of those additional fees to doctors. Now, doctors actually can negotiate with insurance companies, and so just reminding them that everything is negotiable. You know, rates on loans, everything is negotiable. All right, last, doctors don't do a very good job of actually planning for their retirement and what happens after retirement. So a lot of doctors have absolutely no sense of what their cost of living is, how much they really need on a daily basis or monthly or annual basis. They don't know how much they need to have in assets in order to be able to retire. So you can help them with that. In addition, you can help them on the distribution phase. You know, I once read that the deaths climbing Mount Everest are not on the ascent, it's on the descent. And so helping doctors understand that the accumulation phase has different challenges than the distribution phase. And you can help on both parts. And by the way, personally, I think retired physicians are a great market. Okay, the third class of mistakes are to plan for costly and improbable disasters. So I often said I felt like I had a target on the back of my lab coat. Doctors need to protect their assets in the event of lawsuits. So we all know about the risk of medical negligence, but that's not all of it. So let me tell you just sort of a hair-raising story. So there was a dermatologist, and he'd done a great job of building wealth. He had millions socked away, but he continued to practice because he really enjoyed seeing patients. So one day he sent the office manager out to get sandwiches for all the employees. Unfortunately, she was in a T-bone car accident, and even more unfortunately, a teenager was killed in the accident. How terrible, right? Well, the boy was insured, so there was a settlement with the family, but the family retained a lawyer anyway, and the lawyer noticed that this employee was out getting sandwiches for the employees. They went after the doctor and the employee, and the doctor lost everything because they weren't protected. So people do target doctors, and it's really important that doctors protect what they've worked so hard to build so they don't lose it. Next, bad things happen. And surprisingly enough, there are a fair amount of physicians and dentists who don't even have disability insurance. So it's important that doctors know what some of these unlikely things that can happen. So again, they don't lose what they have. So let me just give you one example. You know that there's a HIPAA law. One doctor had an office manager leave on vacation. She took her laptop with her. The laptop was stolen, which is enough of an inconvenience, but it had medical records on there. She was involved with a research project and they were unsecured. So there is a $250,000 fine per each unsecured record. So doctors are doing things these days that expose them to a greater risk profile. Activities like being on social media or speaking or writing. Anytime a doctor puts out information, technically that's the practice of medicine. So they should have an errors and omissions policy. So you can help doctor make sure that they've got protection. So as I said, they don't lose what they worked so hard to build. And then the last category of mistakes are what I call dumb doctor deals. I've personally lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in dumb doctor deals. So here's what happens. Doctors don't know whether or not they can trust you because they've probably been taken advantage of other people in the past. I mean, I know physicians who've had their entire retirement embezzled by their trusted office managers. Okay, so what do? They're in the doctor's dining room, the surgeon's lounge. Another doctor is talking about how they're making a killing in marijuana farms, 200% return on their investment. And there are all sorts of like really crazy deals. And because doctors trust other doctors clinically, they think, oh, that must be a good opportunity. And you see one after the other doctor just diving off the cliffs like lemmings, trying to get into this new dumb doctor deal. So clearly what doctors need is somebody to vet investment opportunities, not just get emotionally engaged. Well, that sounds like a great story, but they need somebody like you who can really look at the numbers and see what the risk of losing money is. So those are the 9 money mistakes. This is in the book that you're going to be distributing. If you've got other mistakes that you think should be in a later version of the book, please let me know. Next, let's talk about the mindset for success. Now, I'm here to help you achieve your business goals. And I'm here to help you do it in a way that works best. Now, remember, we talked about the difference between suits and white coats in the last module. So everyone wants to be successful, but our metric for success is different. For you, it's building your bank account. It's increasing your assets under management. It's increasing the amount of commissions that you get. For doctors, though, the metric for success is service. Now, if you want to conduct business with doctors, conduct yourself as one. So in the success mindset, your goal is to go out there and serve other doctors. If you serve enough of them, they will be attracted to you and they will convert from prospect to client. So as Frank Kern said, in this mindset, you help doctors by actually helping doctors. So with each encounter, you can either deliver an advertising message, this is all about me, or you can deliver a marketing message. And a marketing message has intrinsic value. It's sort of like if you were invited out to a friend's house for dinner, you would bring a hostess gift, and you would bring something that they would enjoy, a bottle of wine, some chocolates, some flowers. You know, it would be received very differently if you brought a photo album from your last vacation. Well, if you're Annie Leibovitz, that would be appreciated. But for most people, that's of interest to you. You get really excited about it, but your host does not. So at every encounter with doctors, think about how can you improve their condition. So I'm talking here about launching a conspiracy of service. You are out there on a moment by moment improving the condition of any doctor who crosses your path. And you are doing this by being sort of like Johnny Appleseed. You are casting your yummy treats, kind of like he cast apple seeds. You're casting them far and wide. And you know that if you cast enough of these seeds, things will catch hold, they will grow. And this is a very effective way for you to grow your list. Okay, so that brings us to really the main point for today. How do you build your lists? So lists are important because the reality is that doctors are going to need multiple contacts with you. So when you have a list or when you get organized, it's easier to have these touch points on a regular basis. And that's the real beauty of creating a digital list, a list that's someplace on your computer. It makes it very easy to automate your outreach. Okay, so as you think about list building, you can tap into each of these 3 buckets of leads. Today, I'm going to show you specifically 5 techniques to dip into the family, friends, and fans bucket. In the next sessions, we'll be talking about dipping into the power partners and into the doctor information seekers. The family, friends, and fans bucket is really where the money is. If you play the odds, the chances are very, very good that this is going to be where you get your next doctor client. You could be 1 email away from getting your next doctor client. I know that seems incredulous, but if you have a good buddy who has a buddy who's a doctor and they've just heard about all of the stress and how awful life is, they hear that you're distributing that book, what do you think they're going to do? Of course, they're going to let that doctor buddy know about this resource. So this is the bucket that's most commonly overlooked. And this is the low-hanging fruit. So let's talk about 5 ways of using this bucket, of dipping into the bucket to build your doctor list. All right, chances are pretty good that during this holiday season, you're going to reach out to people on your list. Your list may have 100 people, it could have 150 people. You could be sending out cards, you might even write a letter. Well, one thing that you can do in your letter is just say, hey, you might not know this about me, but I'm really dedicated to serving the doctors who serve the community. You know, I'm distributing a powerful book written by a physician about how doctors can avoid common financial mistakes. And if you have any doctor friends who might be interested, invite them to visit this specific URL and download a complimentary digital version of the book. Okay, so in order for this to work, in the background, what you've got to have is you've got to have a sign-up box on your web page, or you've got to have a landing page already developed. So let's talk for just a minute about names. In general, you want to purchase a URL, so like www.targetingdoctors.com. So Targeting Doctors is my URL. So your URL should be short, it should be memorable, and ideally, it's a benefit statement. So you can go on GoDaddy and just see what some options are and find one that's really, really short. I know that you would love to get your name out there, but what's even more important than getting your name out there is to have a name that doctors are going to remember so that they'll be able to pass your name along. Docs Save on Taxes. That would be a great name. As you buy your URL, by the way, just know that all physicians are doctors, but not all doctors are physicians. So the kind of doctor has to do with the two letters after a doctor's name. Physicians have MD and DO after their name. Dentists generally have DDS or DMD. And so, you've got to decide on what language you're going to use. Are you going to be attracting doctors, or are you going to be attracting physicians? Physicians sounds a little more elevated. Doctors is more inclusive, but the mistake you do not want to make is talk about doctors and dentists, because dentists are doctors. You don't want to alienate half of your prospects. Okay, just a little tip here. If you are dealing with just a lay population, somebody who does not necessarily have contact with doctors, they might think the doctors completely have it together. Of course they're building wealth. Of course it's not a problem for them. So you may have to educate them that in fact half of doctors are behind in retirement planning. And doctors spend so much time focusing on their patients that quite often having somebody help them and sort of outsource wealth building is the thing that really matters for them. So you are here to help alleviate this financial pain by distributing great resources. Okay, next, you might be at holiday networking events, and you might run into some doctors right there. So as you meet doctors, here are 3 things that you can begin the conversation with. The first is, what attracted you to a career in medicine, or what are some of your proudest moments? And the reason that that is such a good question is that it helps tap into a doctor's dream. And remember, people generally don't remember what you say to them, but they do remember how you make them feel. And so if you can tap into these positive feelings, that positive feeling is going to be associated with you. Another question that you can ask, it's a little different, is, oh, I work with doctors. Hey, doctor, what's your biggest source of frustration when it comes to your money? And doctors are just waiting to talk about all of their sources of frustration. And it's another great way to make an intimate connection. Or you could ask them, hey, if you had a magic wand, what one problem would you fix with it? So these are all really engaging things. So find one that works for you. You might have something different. And then thank them for the work that they do. I actually lost a home to a house fire, and I'm just so grateful for the firefighters who risked their lives to protect me and even bring out specific things that I found valuable. So every time I see a firefighter, I go and I thank them. I sometimes embarrass my son when I do that, but even though that firefighter wasn't at my fire, I am so grateful to that group of professionals. So you can thank doctors, any doctor that you meet, and maybe even tell them the story about how a doctor made a difference in your life. It's hard being a doctor. It's really hard. I actually kept a file of my thank you notes from patients, and on tough days, I used to pull out that file and I used to review them. So you might be running into a doctor who was just sued, maybe who just lost a patient. And, being in front of a real person who had a real impact from a doctor, that sort of puts energy in the love cup there. And then you can also say, this was such a transformative experience that now I'm giving back. I want to give back to this group who works so hard to serve the community. So should you know any doctors who were interested in avoiding the most common mistakes doctors make, invite them to go here and I've got a free book that they can download. So you're not inviting the doctor themselves, because that kind of feels like a pitch. You're just saying, hey, if you have any friends or colleagues who are really worried about this, I've got a free resource. And then you might want to actually sort of talk about my credentials, because credentials are very important in the medical community. So you can say, this is something written by a board-certified surgeon. She served as a clinical faculty at the University of Washington School of Medicine, and she's a serial entrepreneur. So that's going to perk the doctor's ears up. You know, there's lots of books written by financial advisors and money kind of people. I do not give any money advice, right? I don't take on any doctor clients for wealth building. So I have no financial skin in the game. I'm just kind of a cultural anthropologist who just happens to be interested in doctors and their relationship with money. So there are no sales in here. This is just pure information. It's what I've observed. The third thing that you can do is to let your non-doctor clients know about your commitment to helping doctors. So high net worth people probably network with doctors. So they might have heard about a doctor's pain. And if you've helped them, they trust you. And actually, this is a really, really great way of getting your next doctor client. So you're not asking for an introduction. You're not asking for a referral. What you're asking is for the opportunity to deliver some of your high value content to doctors that your existing clients might know. So if you're worried that you might scare off business owners by announcing your commitment to serving doctors, I will just tell you that in my decade of experience of helping financial advisors, I have found that if there's any impact about sharing, the impact is that you become more attractive in the eyes of a business owner. And why is that? If you're working with doctors, that means that you're an elite kind of advisor. So I get the concern, but I hope that I've allayed it so that you actually will go to your existing clients. Okay, next you can tell your doctor clients. And I would imagine that you've got doctors who are absolutely delighted with the kind of transformation that you've helped them achieve. And so you can just go to them and tell them that you're launching this conspiracy of service. You can say, in 2020, I'm going to be offering tools to help doctors take control of their financial destiny. In that spirit, could you please let me know what you think of this book? Okay, we know what they're going to think. They're going to love it. But the thing is that if you just gave them the book, they're probably not going to read it. If you ask for their help, though, if you're asking for their opinion, they are going to take a look at that. So you can distribute the book, ask what they think, and then maybe follow up a couple of days later. What'd you think of the book? Oh, I haven't read it yet. Give me 3 more days and call me back. Okay, so you do that. But if they read it, you know, I was just on an airplane trip. I read the whole thing in the plane trip. This is awesome. Then you said, well, how would you recommend getting the book into the hands of more doctors? And so now they can become your physician evangelists. And just a great tip to keep in mind is that in general, we professionals don't like asking for help. It feels like it erodes our professional status, but I will tell you that in general, asking anybody for help is a great business strategy. And it works particularly well with doctors because we are wired to help. If you asked me for something, you know, my automatic answer is yes until I think about it later and then think maybe not. So it's asking for help is a really, really great way of inspiring doctors to take action. And if you specifically ask, what do you think of this? Then it's going to give them a reason to actually look at some of the content that you're sending out. Okay, the 5th campaign is thanking your own personal doctors. So it might be doctors who have treated you. It could be doctors that have treated a family member. It might even be a doctor that you've seen on the news who did something completely amazing. So during the holiday season or any time of year, you can send them a note thanking them and say, here's how you've made a difference in my life. And, you know, I am so inspired by you that, that I am giving back to this amazing group of people who give so much. Then you can get a branded thumb drive and download a copy of the book onto the thumb drive and include that in the envelope. Okay, so you can also say in the note, I'm helping doctors take control of their financial destiny. If your friends or colleagues would like their own copy of the book, please invite them to visit this URL. As you're approaching your own doctors who have treated you or family members, I want to let you know that doctors have very rigid boundaries around the doctor-patient relationship. So doctors definitely want to know that you're not soliciting them. In the business community, there's this sense of reciprocity, right? I do business with you, you do business with me. That is not the way that things work in the medical community. And if you violate this boundary, that puts you as an outsider. And remember, you want to be an insider. You want to be sort of a member of this trusted inner circle. But there are ways of putting a message out that will honor this boundary. And that's by saying, if you know any doctors who are interested in reading this book or who would like tips about X, Y, and Z, please feel welcome to pass along my name. Now, especially millennial doctors are less rigid about this boundary. And so if a doctor wants to raise his or her hand and say, well, can you help me? That's great. But then the doctor has taken control and you are just, you have honored this boundary. You are acting like somebody who knows the secret handshakes. Okay, so those are 5 specific ideas that you can use starting today. Up next, we're going to talk about how to dip into the power partners and to the doctor information seekers. So I want to thank you for attending. I'd love to have your feedback to know what you think of this series so far. I have actually gotten a couple of questions that I would like to answer. The first is, well, I like the idea of physical books. Can I order the physical book? The answer is yes. If you buy them in bulk, which is 50 or more, you're welcome to purchase them for my cost, which is $4 a book plus shipping. If you order now, you'll have the books in time to give as holiday gifts. And you can even go out and make a branded bookmark with your name, maybe a picture of the book on one side, and then your name, picture, and contact information on the other side. People hang on to books and they hang on to bookmarks. So that sort of keeps you top of mind. Other people have gone through my website and they have seen that you actually do have the option of creating a custom version of the book in which you write a foreword and an afterword. So that means that your name is on the front cover of the book, your picture and bio is on the back cover below mine. I help you write your signature story, your story about why you're serving doctors and why you're in financial services, and then an afterword with a call to action so that doctors will take the next step with you. So if you'd like to learn more about that, that is a possibility. And yes, I have all sorts of ways of helping financial advisors. So as I said, I've been doing this for a decade. If there's a service or a product that you want to help you acquire more doctor clients, I've probably created it because I say yes to most ideas that come my way. So an easy thing to do is just go to the Targeting Doctors site. If you hover over the Service tab, you'll get a drop-down menu, and that'll give you an idea of what some options are. The goal for this bundle that you purchased, though, is really a targeted effort to use this digital book to get your next doctor-client. So again, thank you so much for participating. I hope that you found value in this, and I'll look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.